Given the extraordinary bombast, hyperbole, and certainty that surrounded what we can now safely refer to as a propaganda campaign at the advent of COVID and as it progressed into medical measures and more serious social measures, it's interesting, isn't it, for us to understand that now 5 states are suing Pfizer. Good luck, because Pfizer, of course, as you know, have indemnity, as all vaccine makers do extraordinarily in America. Here's Bobby Kennedy commenting on that. Texas, Utah, it's not called Utah, Kansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana are all suing Pfizer for knowing and concealing that the vaccine may cause pericarditis, or does call it, causes failed pregnancies and deaths. That's 10% of US states. The tide is turning. That is definitely what is happening. This is Thomas Massey now, who has become a little bit of a folk hero, I would say, because he is that rare breed indeed, not necessarily a career politician, but, a politician who can be relied upon to at least raise significant talking points, and to do that most rare of things, represent the interests of the people against corporate, global and political power. Here he is participating in the ongoing hearings around the vaccines, Anthony Fauci's role in the vaccines, the various agencies that were meant to be regulatory but appeared to take on the peculiar role of authoritarian and endorsement agencies. Ultimately, let's have a look at this, as well as one of the chief vaccine executives from within the FDA admitting that he himself didn't take boosters. This is a set of revelations that are so odd to watch unfold. Let's start with Thomas Massey, though.
Think about this. Right when they were getting the warnings that myocarditis and pericarditis were real and serious side effects to the vaccine, and they had already agreed, the top scientists at FDA had already agreed to compress the schedule as much as possible. Right when they got the message that there were serious side effects, and Peter Marks, instead of telling them, we're going to give you more time to study this, he told them to compress the schedule even more.
They shouldn't have been compressing the schedule. They were telling us that we were following science, that we ought to follow the science, that vaccine hesitancy and circumspection were somehow unpatriotic, conspiratorial, and insane. What was in fact happening is a massive propaganda effort was taking place. Real information was being suppressed. People that had concerns were losing their jobs and you losing their right to interject. Doesn't it all seem increasingly ridiculous? We're moving from the hysteria of the pandemic era into the hysteria of an election without any pause for reflection, without any kind of reckoning. Of course, these, I suppose, represent a kind of reckoning, but do any of you imagine that there's going to be a scenario where Anthony Fauci is jailed, or where we're told, my God, we mishandled this terribly? The whole idea that you should stay in your home or you should get vaccinated to protect other people was risible. The fact that young people in general, and young men in particular now, it looks like, were urged to have vaccines, or as now most people insist on calling them, was dangerous, hectic, ridiculous. When are we actually going to reach a point where we can see what this is? This was in real time the warping of political power, the warping of corporate power. It's convenient, in fact, that it was called Operation Warp Speed, because the whole thing was pretty warped.
And when they said that compressing the schedule was not possible, he fired them. He took them off the job, assigned them to other duties. The top vaccine officials who've been there for 30 years, taken off the job.
Been here 30 years, right? Yeah, about 30 years, and we're in the middle of a medical crisis. It seems like it. That's why it's so difficult to fire you right now. We're compressing you right out of a job.
Because they wanted more time to study the effects of the vaccines, and they were told that they needed to do this quickly because they needed to be mandated.
There you go. Let's have a look now at former FDA vaccine deputy, Dr. Krause, who's now unpacking, and it seems sort of kind of incremental, this, but over the course of his testimony, he reveals that young men were subject to a level of risk that in any other vaccine product or medical product would have seen it withdrawn from the shelves, not hyperbolically propagandized and evangelized for zealously, not used as a political tool, not used as a tool of authoritarianism. And right at the end of the clip, he admits that he himself didn't take the booster. It's difficult, I think, to hold in your mind the amount of information we're invited to understand. But this is the lens that I'm trying to use. Just remember, a few years ago, you were told, take this medication. People were shamed. There was just a holistic campaign that incorporated all media. It was literally global, as I suppose would be understandable in a pandemic situation. But now, as we incrementally, not from lunatics, fringe figures, maniacs in house coats, but from sort of bureaucrats and scientists and people from within the FDA hear information that would have been censored online, use that to help you understand what is likely happening now. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. I would like to send a message of love to our sponsors at Charlize. Charlize make this incredible product. Now, have you noticed that I'm looking incredibly young? It's not just the tiny hat, it's my skin. And my skin is looking good because of this range of extraordinary products. Now, I don't know if these products are going to be for you, but they might be for someone you love, and they make a perfect gift. And there's 20% off this pack if you use the code brand. They're absolutely toxin free, unlike a lot of cosmetics. You know, like you use things to make you look younger. It sinks poison, venom into your face. One of the components of this product that makes it extraordinary is citrus paradisi peel oil. This is a beautiful organic ingredient and the very kind of thing that you would expect from Charlene, the founder of this company. These products can do all manner of things. Elevate your skincare routine using the unmatched power of nature. Toxin free, baby. So say yes to natural goodness and show your skin its true potential. Visit charlize.beauty/brand and use the code brand for 20% off. Discover a new era of personal care, one that's truly toxic free. Stay radiant, stay conscious, stay beautiful. Of course, give yourself a pat on the back if you can get your arm round there, if the spike protein site isn't still inflamed. But more than that, recognize that this kind of information enables you to view media and political power with a new degree of cynicism, perhaps.
Myocarditis occurred most predominantly in the various studies in young men, as you say, age 16 and 17. But there were increased rates higher in men than in women, going up also to much older ages, although not as high as the youngest. So I don't know if it's necessarily a puberty issue, because this also affected people as they got older, but that was where we saw it most frequently. And the rates of myocarditis in these young men was quite high. In the early studies, it appeared to be around 1 in 5,000 vaccinees. We still don't understand why that was the case. What we luckily found was that most of these cases were mild, and yet there were some cases that were not mild. And of course, there were also some cases where, many cases where if one's diagnosed with myocarditis, of course, that changes a young man's life, because he'll probably then avoid being in sports and will still have some continued medical follow-up.
In a way, that gives us a chance to unpack the individual reality that many people endured during the pandemic. And of course, there's almost limitless variety within that. You know, some young man's got myocarditis now, he's not doing sport, people are not attending funerals, people are not witnessing the birth of children, small businesses are collapsing, there's a massive wealth transfer taking place. Almost the scale of this is so vast that it's impossible to digest it. But when you see this sort of rather humble and perhaps humbled former FDA employee breaking down the impact of myocarditis, even if it is only one unnecessary case of myocarditis in 5,000 men, I mean, that's still a pretty high number. If that was any other product, it would be withdrawn. The fact that they were granted indemnity prior to this endeavour and have long had that kind of relationship with the state all helps me to reach the kind of conclusion that what we require from all of these hearings is something kind of tangible. And it's odd to go from this crisis to the kind of hysteria that surrounds an election without ever really being able to say, hold on, why would you vote for anybody that was involved in this? Why are we so willing to accept this narrow fissure of democracy? Why are we willing to accept that? No wonder people are having a kind of reflexive rejection, like a kind of peristalsis, squeezing out the turd of the old administration and willing to accept all manner of alternative political systems rather than deal with an establishment that's inflicted this upon nation after nation.
So we don't understand it. It's most common after the second dose of vaccine. We found, luckily, that it did not appear to be as frequent as children got younger, and it also did not appear to occur with anywhere near as high a frequency with third and subsequent doses of vaccine.
Mr. Krause, I want to ask, is natural immunity real?
This is the sort of thing that would have got you censored, of course, from Meta sites and possibly even YouTube. This is the kind of thing that we spent the whole COVID period sort of tiptoeing around. It's odd, isn't it? Because when we're talking about this, I try not to sort of get high on my own supply, remembering that it wasn't any kind of foresight, actually, just inquisitiveness and reading information. The very kind of information, by the way, that they're continuing to try to censor and will be able to censor because the Supreme Court has, of course, as you now know, permitted the Biden administration to continue to control information and to censor big tech, to continue to collaborate in a way that looked like it was going to be made illegal, because it bloody well should be illegal. It's unconstitutional, at least. So it won't be this next time. Will it be bird flu? Will it be nuclear war? Will it just be an increase of ongoing wars, intercontinental wars? Who knows what the legitimization will be next time? But the machinery for censorship and the mentality that created this crisis is still in place. These, even though I would never doubt the integrity of someone like Thomas Massie, these I feel like will amount to kind of show trials. Let me know in the chat if you think that something fruitful and significant enough will emerge from this procedure.
Absolutely.
And is it also, does natural immunity exist if you've been exposed to COVID?
Exposed to but not infected?
Well, infected.
Yes. So people who've been previously infected with COVID or who previously had the COVID-19 disease were shown in a number of very good studies to have reduced incidence of subsequent COVID. And in fact, the protection of a previous episode of COVID was greater than the protection that was received from 2 doses of vaccine.
Now, look, they're still doing a little bit of propaganda. It's very difficult to let go. It's almost like they're talking about an argument that they've had with their spouse. I was still right, though, that it's best to have natural immunity and a couple of vaccines. Oh, so you will have taken boosters yourself then, huh?
It turned out that if you had both had COVID and vaccine, then you were protected even a little bit better.
Like science and natural immunity, we're the best of friends. We're working together as a team. We're the original odd couple. It's natural immunity and...
But there is no doubt that a previous episode of COVID induces immunity that is protective.
So it's not some conspiracy?
No, it's not a conspiracy.
Dr. Krause, did you take a booster?
I did not.
Oh, I don't take those. They are pretty... I saw what they were doing. What they going to do to a guy like me? No, thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.